You're listening to the Grow Landscapers podcast, the podcast where we delve deeper into landscape business, interviewing legends of the UK landscaping industry. So, join host Nick Ruddle as he explores their thoughts, insights and experiences. That's here on the Grow Landscapers podcast.
Hello and welcome to the Grow Landscapers podcast. I'm Nick Ruddle and today I've got a very, very special guest, Mr. Wayne Grills from BALI. How are you this morning?
Yeah, I'm good. Thanks, Nick. How are you?
I'm very well, very well. I feel very honoured and privileged to have you on the show today. We have BALI royalty, the main man himself. I think it's for people to get to know you, find out what your background is, what your thoughts are around BALI in the future. I think that'll add a lot of value to people, and hopefully it will incentivise people to also join as a BALI member for those who are not currently BALI members, if there are any out there still at this at the moment. So, without further ado, let's get cracking. How long have you been working within the industry, and in what capacity?
So I've been with BALI as an association for 11 years now, actually. So 11 years in April just gone. But I've been in the landscaping, the land-based industry for the last 28 years in one guise or another. So fairly lengthy time. But I'm sure we'll probably come on to that as time moves on. But yeah, so 11 years with BALI, which is fantastic. It's probably actually the longest time I've spent with any organisation in one place. So.
Wow, it says a lot, doesn't it? It says it all. Obviously enjoying yourself. So where did it all start then? What the early years? Where did you grow up? What was your career path leading up to BALI? Over to you.
So I'm a Mancunian. I was born and grew up in Manchester. And I moved at a fairly early age. I moved around about 16, still within Lancashire. My mum and dad set up a hotel, and I went to work for them. So my early career was 14 years in the hotel and catering industry. So I started out life as a chef, and moved on to front of house areas from there. Eventually, the last 7 years of those 14, I spent in human resource manager positions throughout sort of hotel chains like Jarvis Hotels, Whitbreads, etc. And then decided at the grand old age of 30 that I either wanted to be in a head office role or a multi-site role, and that wasn't coming quite quickly enough. So I started looking around. I moved on into my first awarding body of qualifications, which was in an industry that actually had nothing to do with at all. And that was clothing and textiles. So I moved into that, and we then sort of diversified and digressed from there. And I literally took on the role of MD or chief exec then from there on in a range of industries. So clothing, textiles, I mentioned, animal care, small animal care, gamekeeping, fish husbandry, museum heritage awards. And then went into waste management. So the company I was working for bought some companies in the Midlands, which is what brought me down to the Midlands. And so I worked in waste management and delivering landfill tax credit scheme, as well as delivering business startup advice through business link contracts across 3 different companies. And did that for about 5 years before moving into the next awarding body, which was extractives and mineral processing, or quarrying and mining. And then a couple of years doing that, 2.5 years doing that, and then moved into Lantra Awards here on Stoney Park, where BALI's based, as the MD of Lantra Awards there. So putting about 60,000 learners a year through training courses and qualifications.
Wow. So from hotels to chefing to minerals to all sorts, really, waste management, and now ending up at BALI. So
yeah.
What a lovely diverse range of sort of experiences you have. I suppose you pick up something from everywhere, every industry you're in, don't you? I mean, what would you see that say as like the common kind of things that are maybe transferable? What would you say you've learned throughout that's like a common with all of those?
I think, some of it's about knowledge transfer, isn't it? And running a business, no matter which industry you're in, there are certain principles of running a business that are very, very similar. And I think on my interview here at BALI with the board members, I think that was the question. It was a case of, well, they had some candidates that worked in the industry and others that didn't. And they said, well, why should we pick you? And I said, well, look, if you're wanting somebody that can provide technical advice to your members, then that's clearly not me, because I've not grown up in this industry. But if you want somebody to help run the association, build the membership base, look at the customer service elements of what we do with the membership, then I'm the guy. And fortunately, they went for it. So.
Yeah, I suppose it's quite refreshing, really, to have someone outside of the industry. It gives you slightly different perspectives, doesn't it? And you come with different ideas, not necessarily sort of influenced by your own experiences. You sort of see it with fresh eyes, quite naively, probably, but probably quite in a good way, being a little bit more naive, not being so sort of long in the tooth. So so that's good. So obviously, it worked. You've been here 11 years, so that's good. Obviously enjoying it, obviously doing a good job. So what would you say you like best about your role as the chief exec these days?
What do I like best? Pretty much everything. I've always said I don't think I could just be a Monday to Friday, 9 to 5, sitting behind the desk kind of person. And that's certainly not the role here at BALI. So when I was brought on, of course, I was on as Chief Operations Officer, with a focus and a need in order to look at the internal systems and processes, looking at building up the staff, looking at the customer service element of what we were delivering to members. So from that point of view, it was quite varied in its own. And then since then, the board sort of recognised that the role was changing considerably. There was a lot of lobbying involved, which continues today, and meetings with stakeholders, industry meetings, that sort of thing. So actually, the chief exec role was probably already doing it, to be quite honest, but the board felt it was appropriate to then just change my title and sort of have that recognition within the industry as well. But for me, it's the same job. I love what I do. I love what I do for BALI. And I think, I've always said from day one that I've never, and I've worked in some industries, as you know, but I've never had such a warm welcome as I have done from the landscape industry itself, from the people within it, are just fantastic. I'm still in awe after 11 years of those individuals that, of course, can name plants and their Latin names as well. I still can't quite get there, unfortunately, with things like that. But yeah, I think there are some fantastic people in our industry, and some great people to learn from, actually.
Yeah, there really is, and there's so much passion and so much abundance. I mean, with the interviews we've already done on this show, the abundance and the real natural passion and the desire to help people and really and that's why that's why you're on this show, is so that other people can learn from your years of experience, and if you can just give back something that someone finds useful and it helps them, then obviously it's going to be a worthwhile thing to do. But you mentioned there about systems and processes. That's what you were brought in to do, and it's interesting because although you're not a landscape gardener or a landscape business, all businesses are run on systems and processes, and the importance of having those in all businesses, not just a landscape business, but every business. So what would you say about that then? What did you have to come in and do to improve the systems and processes that you found when you came into BALI? Because it's like running your own business in a way, isn't it? So you're going through the same kind of processes.
It is absolutely like running your own business, and it was the first role that I'd had in 20 years that I was running a business that didn't have a parent company. So that was quite refreshing in itself. So so the best bits, I think, and just coming back to systems and processes, those systems and processes don't work without the people. It was exactly the same when I worked in the hotel industry. It's been exactly the same with every other business. It's, anybody can build a building, build an office, build a hotel, etc. Actually, it's the people that give it life. And that's one of the most crucial things. So you can have all the systems and processes you like, but actually, if you've not got people that are signed into that and actually committed and loyal to that, then that just goes away completely. You will spend every audit trying to backtrack because you've not got the right people in place. So for me, the people is one thing. So the BALI team here are phenomenal. They're a great team to work with. Very proud of them. The BALI board members, I have to say, form part of that team. And even though we've had some changes in board members over the years, everybody that has been on this board is committed to the cause, committed to the association, and so on. So, and therefore stakeholders alike in the industry. That's the other best bit about the job. But in terms of systems and processes, it's just about, for me, it's about going through it, methodically and logically and saying, well, okay, how can we provide the best customer service, and then making that system or that process reflect that, rather than being driven by the process. I was involved in a business many years ago when the BS 5750 standard came out, the quality standard, which is now, of course, the ISO 9001 2015 standard. But we had consultants coming in, helping us with that, writing copious processes that actually, in my opinion, didn't, they hindered what we were trying to do rather than supported what we were trying to do. And that's the crucial thing, get a process, go through it yourself. What can we do to be the best at what we do? And then write it down. That's your process. So, think about it first rather than thinking about a logical process and then trying to stick to it, because that potentially is where you come unstuck, in my opinion. And certainly my experience in the past. So.
Yeah, I think it's key lesson there is to keep it simple, keep it logical, because if it's easy to understand, people will follow it. If you try and make it unnecessarily overcomplicated, people just won't follow it. And I think the challenge with some of those ISO sort of projects is that it's done for a box ticking exercise for a lot of people just to get through tenders, and they don't actually embed that culture into the business. And it's interesting what you said there about getting the right people. And I think the biggest challenge that we find, or I hear with business owners, or the biggest frustrations, is that they might put systems and processes in place, and they might do some training on those, but then people don't always follow it. So there's a system, but it's not being followed. So I think one of the good sort of insights really is when you're interviewing people, to explain that you want systems thinking people that like following processes, that can see the value in that and understand why it's so important we do that. Because obviously the obvious reasons: it gives you consistency, it minimizes mistakes, it saves money, it makes you more efficient. So I think that's important there, that you've got the systems in place. Nice and simple, 80-20 kind of rule, systemization, 80%, humanization, 20%. So you've got to have great people that see the value in running systems, but ultimately everything you do as an organization, as everyone's it's based on systems, based on processes, just repetitive kind of tasks that you do either daily, weekly, monthly, quarterly, but getting people following those consistently. So it's interesting you've seen the value of that as one of the first things you did when you came into this role, into BALI. Very good.
And I think, Nick, it runs through as well. So if we're going through audits, for example, whether that be the ISO 9001 or whether it be investors in people, those audits or financial audits, we've got to see those as a benefit to the business. Ultimately, it's got to add value to the business in order for it to have meaning. And if something comes out of that audit, then that's a positive, because it's helping you move the business forward. I think that's the way you've got to look at it. And I think that runs through certainly on what we have, we call a QSR, a quality standards review, which is very similar to the initial vetting that people go through when they first join BALI. Right. And the QSR officers that are going out very often are reporting back that the businesses they're going out to visit really find it helpful. Somebody coming in and looking at, as you say, a third party almost coming in, looking at their business and suggesting, actually, there are ways to improve, should you want to. And that adds real value, I think, to members' businesses. So what I would say is, if there are any members out there and they're worried about going through a QSR and trying to delay it, then no, absolutely, do it and see what you can get from it.
Yeah, well, I think all those things, it's a constant work in progress, isn't it? Fine-tuning all the time, reviewing, see where you are, evaluating where you are, how, what's working, what's not, how could we improve? Business is like that. It never stays the same for long periods of time. You've got to constantly review, check how things are doing, and if you can improve on things going forward, because technology changes, people change, a whole bunch of things change. You've got to change with it. Okay, good. So, look, I'm aware that you're working on a new strategic plan at BALI? I know that we can't necessarily give away all the secrets at the moment, but if you were to sort of just say, so what might some of those objectives be for the organisation over the next sort of 5?
So we've got
10 years.
a new strategy for the next 3 years, which we will be launching pretty soon. Our key objectives for going through those really will be, so obviously we've reset the vision and the mission for the organisation moving forward, and put in some new values. Actually, our values previously were support, promote and inspire. We've got some new ones along the way. And the values, I think, had to be reviewed, because we were looking at how we can run those values throughout the organisation, not just with membership. I think our previous values were probably outward facing, thinking about members in the membership all the time. Where actually values for me are much more intrinsic throughout the business. They have to work internally as well as externally, have to have meaning and have to be inclusive. So I think from that point of view, we've got some new values coming as well, which will be really great to see, which will really feed in, I think, with our investors in people standards and what we're trying to achieve with the team internally that way as well. But our main objectives will be to lead the industry, build the membership base, be relevant to end clients, and I'll talk a little bit more about that if I've got time as we move forward, and future-proof the organisation. So that's our 4 main work strands as we move forward. But being relevant to end clients, actually, I spent Monday to Friday last week down at Chelsea Flower Show, the RHS Chelsea Flower Show. And the one thing, and I think I said this to every single member that came to the stand to see us and said, how's it going? The one thing that was really refreshing this year was that I think pretty much 99.5% probably, of all of those members of public that came to the stand understood that they needed to have an accredited professional running through a professional organisation. And I think in order to do their work, that's a real sea change from previous years. I think I joked with a couple of our members and said, well, that's it, I can retire now, because job done. But obviously it's huge, it's massive, we've got a long way to go. But it's very, very good and encouraging, I think, and almost proud for me, actually, to stand and listen to people saying, we're going to have some work done, or we've got a new garden, or I bought a new house with a garden that needs sorting. And then the next words that come out of their mouth is, but we know we need somebody to do that and do it well. I think I spoke to one lady who said that she had builders in to do their extension, and normally we go, okay, don't let them touch the landscape. But she knew that already. She said they've offered to do the garden, but I know I need somebody that knows what they're doing. That's such a sea change from previous years. It was just, as I say, so refreshing to hear. It was great.
Yeah, really educating everyone, everyone about the industry, and why not have a governing body that endorses the great and the best companies. I mean, it's great for the customer because it gives you peace of mind that actually, I'm working with a reputable company that's serious about what they do, and the builders are always trying to get on the action, aren't they, to try and get a bit of extra work out of a project. But no, I think leave it to the professionals, leave it to the experts. But it's interesting what you said there. Every single person we've had on the show so far has all mentioned the importance of values, and having values in any kind of business, both internally and externally, for those kind of purposes. It's probably not something that people necessarily feel or even very aware of when they first go into business, about what are the important things? Well, I need to have a website, I need to make sales, I need to have the right people, I need to have tools, I need to have a van. Values, I don't think would be at that point very high up on their list of priorities. But I've said this for the last, 5 or 10 years. I think values are the most important thing in a business. I know you've got to have the accounts, right. Financials have got to be on the right place. You've got to have the right people on the bus. But to attract the best people, the people with like-minded values, as yourself, as the owner, it's the values that stick. It's that glues everything together. And without the values, you can end up recruiting poor people, or people that are not right for your company with your values and your culture. And getting the right people with shared values, everything starts to click into place. So it's interesting that you're saying that from BALI's point of view, how important values are as well. And I know we worked on values a while back.
Yeah.
Very impressive. Very good. Doing all the right things. So you've got the right systems in place, got the right people with shared values. and hence why I think you've got such a strong team at head office at Landscape House. We don't
Thank
say
you.
Landscape House. Okay, right. So moving on then. So what would you say you see as the biggest challenges for the landscaping industry as it stands today?
I seem to have been saying this for a number of years now, unfortunately, but skills and staffing shortages is the biggest single thing I think that everybody feels. I think I said to somebody last week, actually, I can probably count on one hand the number of businesses that say they're fully staffed. And it's the one problem that we seem to have as an industry, but we're not the only industry. Anybody I speak to from a range of industries have all got the same issue. And the biggest concern for me is with the announcements last week of the number of job vacancies outnumber the numbers on the unemployment list. Is even a bigger concern, to be quite honest, because the concern is, where are these people going to come from? I think what we're seeing, however, is we're seeing BALI members become real innovative in terms of what they're looking at, how they're looking at bringing people on board, whether it's part-time, seasonal, all of those kind of things, just to help out with the business. They're real solution finders are BALI members, I have to say. Both coming out of the previous recession and all this issue that we've had in the last few years now with COVID and with Brexit and all of those kind of things. The industry is so resilient, it really is. It's phenomenal to see. But it doesn't mean to say that they're not having struggles like any other businesses. It's just that they're good at trying to find ways around it and move forward from that point of view. I think the biggest thing for us, of course, is, as you'll know, we started Go Landscape as a careers initiative back in 2018. It was launched. That's been going phenomenally well. We're in the process at the moment of recruiting for another education officer, because unfortunately, while Steve was doing some research for Go Landscape and the BALI Academy and the standards work that we've been doing, he managed to find another job for himself. So we're in search of another education officer right now. So and then we are looking at potentially building that with an additional person, perhaps as an assistant, because it really was taking off. It was really hitting the mark. Careers advisors for schools and colleges, etc., really keyed into it, and we've got a great group of ambassadors that have been trained up by Steve, who've been supporting on the careers events, going into schools, colleges, looking at career changes, those kind of events, armed forces resettlement programs. So, we're looking at all sorts of things to try and bring people into the industry and show it as a credible career path. We do talk about the wider horticultural industry. It's not all landscape, but and that's just to be fair to everybody, to kind of show that there is a pathway, and that even if you come in at landscape operative level, should you want to, you've got the desire and the knowledge, etc., you can work up. You could be a Tim O'Hare soil scientist, or something like that, for example. So I think there's lots of opportunities, without a shadow of a doubt, and I think it is, however, one of the biggest challenges that we've got. Others, I think plant health and biosecurity is a huge concern. I think if you talk to DEFRA, I think they've got over 1,100 pests and diseases on their pest and disease register now, on the plant health register, with around about 100 new pests and diseases coming into the country a year. That's a consideration and a concern, because there are new plant health regulations that have been introduced earlier this year, and even more due to take place in future months, I think. It's probably the best way to say it. It's been delayed. It was supposed to be July, but it's been delayed. And then right now, all of our members, everybody in the landscaping industry, whether a member of an association or not, is feeling the pinch with regards to the cost of materials and the shortage of supply materials. A little bit better now than it was, but the cost isn't necessarily, because of course just the cost of living, inflation, supply materials, all of those kind of things, is having a huge impact at the moment. And then finally, for me, it's just about government recognition for the industry. That's a challenge. We're getting better at it. We're getting far more of our civil servants understanding of what our industry is capable of and what it can produce and what it has produced. So I think we're beginning to well, I was going to say win the battle. I don't think it's a battle, but and I don't think we're winning it yet. I think we've seen the chink in the armor. Let's put it that way. That's probably the way to describe it. So there's still a long way to go. But we work as part of the Ornamental Horticulture Roundtable Group. I think possibly to be named the Environmental Horticulture Roundtable Group in the future. But I think we're seeing some good inroads being made and getting some recognition coming back, not necessarily always from ministers, but as I say, civil servants and peers and MPs, etc., are now beginning to sit up and take notice, and questions being asked in House of Lords, House of Commons, etc., about our industry. So that's great to see.
Yeah, really starting to get the ball rolling. I think sometimes it must feel like wading through treacle, but I think if you keep the faith and you spot those chinks in the armor and you just keep going and keep going, you're going to get heard. I know you're doing a lot of lobbying in England and in Scotland, aren't you, at the moment, to get your voice heard. So yeah, lots of challenges, and I think the recruitment side of things, the skill shortage has always been a challenge, I think, in the landscape industry, and I think at the moment there's a global skill shortage or issue with recruitment. There's just a lack of good skilled people around the world, not just the UK. There's a massive skill shortage and problems on the recruitment side. So in any way that you can make yourself more of an attractive business to work for, obviously the better. What you're doing with Go Landscape is phenomenal, and I think, because one of my questions was going to be, what could you do to make the industry more attractive? Clearly, the Go Landscape initiative is exactly tapping into that end of the market, and I think with what we do with our clients as well is to backfill. It's a lot easier to get people in from college, from school, when they're young, and give them a career path, as opposed to trying to get the skills in at the higher end. If we can sort of start to feed the bottom and get everyone, younger people, with the landscape industry on their mind, there's so many different opportunities, and there's so much variety in landscaping. Like you mentioned there, it's not just landscaping projects, it's everything else that surrounds it. So it's not a 5-minute cure, but I think with the right strategy long term and just that resilience and perseverance, I think you'll get there. I definitely think you will, and with the government's help and backing, I think that will definitely help too. Very good. So what frustrates you then about the industry, and why?
Okay, so where do we start? And how long have we got? I think those that talk down the industry, that really frustrates me. I think, as I say, I've worked in a number of industries, and this is a phenomenal industry. It really is. Yeah. And I think those that talk it down, and when I say talk it down, I'm talking about those people that maybe say, you don't come into this industry to make money. Really? There's a lot of people in this industry are making a nice living out of the industry. Thank you very much. And actually, that in itself doesn't do the perception of our industry any good whatsoever. So that that really, we've had members on our board even that have talked about being down in a ditch, digging out a ditch, with fathers and mothers walking past with their children, picking them up from school and saying, look, if you don't do well at school, that's what you'll end up doing. And these people have got degrees, in landscape management, etc. And you just think that's the battle that we're facing. And if we as an industry don't talk about that in a very positive light, then we're really doing ourselves a disservice. And we will continue for the next 10 or 20 years, wonder why we're not getting enough people into the industry. So, let's be more positive about it, I think is one thing. Lack of government recognition, as I said in your previous question, I think that's frustrating sometimes. For an industry that is, back in 2019, 2017 we did the original research, 2019 it was updated. So for an industry that now provides a £28.8 billion GDP contribution to the UK, 763,000 people employed in the wider horticultural industry, £8.7 billion worth of tax revenues going to government. Why are government not listening to us? And why is our industry not seen as a credible career pathway? I think that frustrates me, because there is huge opportunity. and huge number of jobs available. So we're here, I think it's just about getting that message out continually. And hopefully, if we're seeing a change in public perception and what they're suggesting they need, then there will hopefully drive a demand for professional people that are qualified, etc., to go through that process and support them in providing their projects. Obviously, we see it at a slightly different level at commercial as opposed to the sort of domestic residential areas. But in commercial, there is a requirement to be trained to the appropriate level, carded, health and safety trained, all of that kind of thing. We don't quite see that in the same way, I think, in the residential, which is where public perception has been different in the past, I think.
Yeah, but I think you're right. It does start from within. If you've got people that are working within the industry with their beliefs that are not necessarily correct, about you want to make money, don't come into this industry. I think if you've got people within the industry, maybe the industry's not right for them. And one of the things that I always say, free advice from unsuccessful people can be very expensive. So these people, you've got to be careful who you listen to as well, and what you take on board, because not everyone's the same, and other people's issues are their issues. So not nice to see all your numbers with all the stats and all the numbers, the financial numbers about how big the industry is, because it really, really is a huge contributor to the economy. And the environment, obviously.
And landscaping as well, Nick, is actually the largest part of that industry. So you're probably talking about 16 billion of that 28 billion actually is from landscape services. So
it's a huge number. It's a huge number, and needs to attract a lot more people. And you're doing a great job, obviously doing your part to make that happen. Okay, so we haven't got too much time left, and I don't want to keep you for too much longer. But what parts of working at BALI have you personally found the most rewarding?
Well, I think again it comes back to the people element for me. Working with such a fantastic and committed team here at the Landscape House within BALI itself. And similar with board members, and people in the industry. I think it has to be people-centered. Because that's what this industry is about. We have some fantastic schemes, don't get me wrong, and it's brilliant to see those schemes both during and after completion. But I think those schemes are not possible unless you've got those people to deliver them. We've said the same about Chelsea. We don't think, and we've reported this to the RHS, we don't think that contractors get enough praise for what they've done on the Chelsea flower show gardens in that same way, not detracting away from anything that the designers do, but it wouldn't get built if it wasn't for the contractors on the back of it. So it's a joint effort. It's about the industry coming together in all its guises and forms, and making sure that they're delivering that sort of element of quality.
It's funny, you come back to people again, and I think this, whether you're the chief exec of BALI or whether the chief executive of ABC Landscapes or any other industry, any other company, any other industry, it's about the people running great systems, being happy with the right culture, like-minded values, all those kind of things. And you mentioned there about the contractors not getting enough recognition at Chelsea. I do find that as well. It's bizarre. It's all about the designers. Actually, it's all very well to design, but you've still got to actually have the skills and the expertise to be able to deliver that within a 3-week build. Is it 3-week build?
3 weeks normally, yeah.
Thankfully, one of our clients got the People's Choice Award last week, and again, they don't get enough credit. I don't see there's enough exposure. Anyway, that's another story, so we won't go down that road. Okay, so let's just see. I'm going to ask you a question now, which is what I ask everyone on this podcast, really. So, because you're running your business, I know you don't own the business, but you run it as if you are. So, what do you see the most important elements being of running a really successful business from all your years of working in this industry and all the other industries that you worked in the past? If you were to sort of bring it down to maybe a handful, 2-3 elements, what would they be for you?
I think I'm just paraphrasing now, really, to be honest, but people, systems and processes are really important. But obviously the execution of that, and you've got to go back and you've got to review. Have we achieved? Why did we achieve? Why have we not achieved? and sort of take that on the chin and move forward with that. I think in that same way. I think, yeah, it's a difficult one because I as far as I'm concerned, I just do what I do, and hopefully I've got a good enough team around me to help achieve that. And we're fortunate at BALI that we've been able to do that. But I think for other businesses out there, I think it's about seeking support. I think it's about never feeling that you're alone, actually, because I think, those owners of businesses, or whether you're own or not, or whether it's, like my own, it can be a fairly lonely place at times. And I think you may feel as though you're the only one with those issues and those problems to face from that perspective. So seek support, whatever way and shape, form that might be, whether it's through your association or whether it's, externally from people like yourselves as business coaches, or whether it's generally from other people in the industry. There is a huge amount of knowledge transfer goes on from one person to another in the industry. Despite, in many cases, it being quite a commercial side of the industry, people are so willing to support and just share things about how they've had issues with their business and got through them, and all of those kind of things. So I think, never feel as though you're alone. Outside of that, of course, our charities in the industry are there to support. Our BALI Chalk Fund, charity that's linked with BALI, that supports people coming into the industry, particularly with training and development through the colleges with enrichment programs, all of those sorts of things. And then, of course, we've got Perennial, who, of course, had their garden at Chelsea last week as well, who support the wider horticultural industry, not only those that work in the industry, but their families as well. And that's a huge support mechanism that's there, that sometimes I think people might be a little bit too proud to just go and ask for help. But it's there, depending on what kind of help you need. If you are a member of the association, engage with the association. It's the biggest single thing that I think we've still got facing us as an individual organisation as a challenge, is to make sure that we're getting better engagement from members. And that will come as part of building our membership objective as we move forward. And then working on the business rather than in it. I think, that's a crucial thing. And I know, Nick, that, that's something that you talk with your clients about continually. And it's a difficult thing to do. It's difficult to let go and let somebody else take the reins for a little while you then look at the business holistically and say, well, okay, how can we better it? I was talking to a BALI member at Chelsea last week. It was music to my ears. Hopefully we can do a case study on the back of it. But they said, since they became BALI members, the quality of work that they're getting coming through for inquiries and the amount in which they're able to charge for that work has changed considerably. And I think, you've got to look at the business and got to look at those kind of ways of doing that. Otherwise, you might end up delivering the same kind of work and slogging your guts out forevermore. And I think that's where the perception is, that people don't make money. I think it's just about trying to take that leap of faith and move forward. And for me, it's about quality delivery every time, if you can.
Yeah.
It's crucial.
Absolutely. There's so much in there. I mean, I could talk to you about that for the next hour, but I think the sort of overriding word there is support, because you've got the support around you, the support of BALI, the support of other members, the support of coaches, or lots of other people are there if you want to reach out to people. It's such an abundant industry. Everyone's so helpful. They're so passionate. They're not like trying to keep everything for themselves. I think a lot of people maybe struggle in the industry because they don't value what they do and they don't charge accordingly. And I think if BALI gives you that endorsement and that stamp of approval that gives you the confidence to then go, actually, yeah, I'm a BALI member, I should be charging this, then it's what you're charging what you're actually worth. And I think people maybe undervalue that, and as a result of that they struggle. So those people that say, you want to make money, they're not valuing their own skills and what they actually deliver. Why not charge the best? Material costs, plant costs, tree costs, all going up. So you have to you have to pass that forward, I'm afraid.
Yeah.
But lots of support out there, and definitely lots of support within BALI. So well, that leads on nicely to my next question then. So what would you say to someone, in a way you've sort of answered your own question with that case study that you just explained, but what would you say to someone thinking about joining BALI, who's just sort of on the cusp thinking, well, should I not?
Well, look, as you might expect, I'm going to say do it sooner rather than later. There's a number of people that we speak to that say, I've been thinking about joining for a while. Why wait?
Yeah.
Why wait to get that help and that support and the technical aspects that we deliver? All of those, I suppose, all of those benefits. And people say, what's the benefit in BALI? We have a list of benefits. There are things that help. We've had one member that's given us a quote just recently about having had an HR professional on a retainer, and they were paying them about £2,000 a month on a retainer just to support on the HR side of their business. And then came to BALI and looked at the Quest support, the BALI HR and health and safety aspects that we have. They do tax and VAT and things like that as well, which most associations will have. They'll have something similar, but started using it, found it really helpful, and has now moved away from the HR consultant. So they're saving themselves £2,000 a month. 24 grand has now gone straight to their bottom line, just by utilising the membership benefits that are there. And that's not taking away, of course, the aspects that you get from networking, etc. So it's the old 24/7 telephone helplines, the online template documents, of which there's about 600, all of those things, the insurance, making sure that you're covered properly, and making sure it's an organization as a broker that understands our business. So that, there may be elements of working at height and things like that, which very often we get quotes to say that when they come to claim, they've not been covered properly because of that. It's all of those aspects, but it's everything else that we've talked about. It's the people in the industry, it's the networking element, it's the learning from. My chairman, when I started, used to say, well, I'll come to as many events as possible because actually I'll treat it as free consultancy. That's always stuck with me, as you can tell, for 11 years in. I still remember that, still quote it. Go and learn from others in the industry and then see if you can utilize that in your own business and advising clients moving forward, build it into your schemes moving forward. Enhance your own business and enhance the ability to earn more on the back of it.
Yeah. So I really do think if someone is on the fence and not quite sure, you've got different benefits to different kinds of people, different kinds of industry, different kinds of requirements, haven't you? So there's something in there for everyone. There's a tailored solution. Just look into it and just what have you got to lose? You've only got everything to gain. There's so much more benefits to get involved. And I think once you do, you just won't look back and you'll stay a member year after year because it will be blatantly obvious as to the value. Yeah. Brilliant. So this has been a wonderful, how long have we been? 40, 45 minutes. Could speak to you about this stuff all day long, but I know you're busy and I'm sure other people are busy as well. But if people do want to get in touch with you or do want to join BALI as a member, what would you say the best way would be for them to contact you?
So the easiest way is just to go onto the BALI website. So it's bali.org.uk is the website address, and there's an inquiry form on there. So literally click on the join our network, and there's an inquiry form to fill in. That will come straight through to us. Or failing that, if you're not an email website type person, pick up the phone and just give us a call on the main number. So it's as easy as that, and we'll start the process with you and support you through the way.
Brilliant. Just one click away. Brilliant, Wayne. It's been a pleasure. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
Enjoy the rest of your day. Enjoy the Queen's Jubilee weekend that we've got coming up, and I'll catch up with you very soon.
That's great. Thanks, Nick.
Take care. Cheers, Wayne.
Bye for now.
Bye-bye.
Thanks for listening to the Grow Landscapers podcast. To get in touch and see how we can help you with your business by emailing nick@nickruddle.com.